do miss any part of it, it will be posted on events.bbcommunity.org. You can also find additional webinars on there to sign up and also past recorded webinars. And we're holding these daily webinars until the first week of June, so please tune in for more topics. And then my name is Faustine Chan. I'm the Business Innovation Manager for BB, and I've been helping coordinate these webinars. So if you have any questions or if you'd like to speak on a topic, please reach out to me as well. So today we have two fantastic speakers. I'd like to welcome Alison Schmitt. She has over 16 years of client experience to her role as Group Account Director. She graduated from Arizona State University with a degree in Business Communications and has worked in both the media and agency sides of business to develop and execute effective integrated campaigns for clients across a variety of industries. We also have Dan-Bergman. He joined LT in 2012 and works with team members across all disciplines at the agency to develop strategic marketing solutions for prospective clients. He's also gotten his start in digital marketing strategy and also considers it his passion, and has since expanded upon his experience and developed an integrated marketing approach. So please welcome both our speakers today, Alison and Nick.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
It says the host disabled attendee screen sharing. So is there maybe a button you have to click, Faustine? Oh, there we go. Perfect. Alrighty. Are we all seeing two faces? Yep. Alison, do you see us? All right, beautiful.
I see us. I see us.
Thank you so much for that intro, Faustine.
Yeah, thank you. As she said, I'm Alison Schmitt. I'm Group Account Director at LaneTerralever here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been in the advertising and marketing world here for about almost 20 years on both the media and agency sides of the business. I have extensive experience in automotive and oversee accounts at LT like Arizona Boardwalk, which houses the OdySea Aquarium. It's the complex that houses OdySea Aquarium, Arizona Department of Transportation, Clover Life Spa, First Solar, the Joint Chiropractic, K-12 Education, Upward Projects, Restaurants, and UTI.
Great, yeah, and as Faustine mentioned, I'm Nick Dan-Bergman. I head up marketing for the agency, and now doing the math, I think I've been with the agency almost 8 years. And just a little bit of background, so we're a marketing agency. We are located here all in Phoenix, although we are all dispersed remote at this point. So I think Alison's up in the woods in Pine Top right now, lucky her, while I'm getting roasted by 100-degree heat. But we work with a lot of different clients in a lot of different industries, and both on a national and a local level. So when we go through today, a lot of what we're going to be showing is examples. Some of them are national, some of them are local, some of them are clients, some of them aren't. But the idea is to give you some variety of different examples of what you can be doing right now. Now that you have a little background on us, I just want to do a quick little poll, two quick poll questions to better understand who's on the webinar today. So the first one's really aimed at understanding if you're in your business, if you're more focused on B2C, B2B, or doing a little bit of both. So I'll wait a minute here and let you guys respond to that. Should be up on the screen. All right, hopefully we all got to put our ballot in. All right, a lot of both. Well, that's good. We have examples of both today. So that's, it seems like there's a little bit more B2B and then a few that have both. So perfect. And then the second question is really just aimed at understanding kind of the size of your business. So are you going at this alone? Are you kind of like a freelancer or a solopreneur, or is your team 5+? Are you 100+? So that question should be up now. All right, let's see those results rolling in. All right, seems like most people are in that kind of 5 to 100 team range. Perfect. I think a lot of the examples we're going to be walking through is specifically relevant to that, so that's awesome. So since this whole crisis, I don't even know what to call it. You can call it what you want, but since COVID-19 hit, I think one of the things we're seeing that you've probably heard said in a lot of different ways is this idea that crisis often accelerates a trend that's already happening and eventually makes those permanent. So whether you've probably seen like just shifts in consumer behavior, right? You know, if you're a B2B type business, you're probably seeing the shift into behavior of using Zoom like we're on today. If you're in healthcare, you probably notice the quick shift to telehealth. If you're in food and beverage, you've seen the rapid adoption of curbside pickup and contactless delivery. Ultimately, though, like the way you're impacted by this whole situation is varies depending on the industry you're in. So you have some that are hurting immensely, right? You talk about casinos, attractions, retailers, restaurants, anything revolving around tourism or hospitality is obviously taking a big hit during this time. And then you have some that are really thriving, right? Online education providers, certain software companies, grocery stores, certain professional services. But even within those industries, there's nuances, right? So in higher ed, I was just reading an article the other day talking about that they're projecting that 20 to 25% of higher ed institutions in 2 years might no longer exist. So while higher ed, broadly speaking, is having a very difficult time, there's subsegments of that industry that are thriving. You know, on the other side of things, looking more consumer-related businesses like restaurants, similar, right? Restaurants are taking a huge hit, but I saw the group is from a lot of different areas. You know, in your local town, you probably noticed that there are certain restaurants that have adapted really well and actually thrived through this, and we'll have some examples of that here shortly. Ultimately, regardless of which bucket you fit into, a lot of what we're going to be walking through here today is going to apply to you regardless. So what are the 7 things that you can do in the short term to ensure long-term success? The idea here really is these are principles that we think are important in any time, but just because of what we're going through right now have become even more vital.
Yeah, as Nick said, COVID-19 has and will change every industry, but opportunities do exist. This quote from Rahm Emanuel does a great job of summing it up. For those of you who may not be familiar, he has an extensive background in politics. Most notably, he was Obama's chief of staff and former mayor of Chicago. There's no playbook for marketing in a global pandemic. With consumers as concerned about their stability as they are about the dangers to their own health, we as marketers have to make careful decisions about how we communicate in the short term. And brands that respond appropriately to this challenge will come out stronger than before. So now that we're through what I would consider the initial crisis phase of this ongoing, for lack of a better word, phenomenon, we're going to talk about some of the things that you as a marketer can do now to impact the future success of your business. And you'll see the overarching theme of our presentation today is that it's time to rethink what you're doing and be open to new ideas. So number 1, help, don't sell. We're all very accustomed to seeing price and item ads for discounts or percentage off. And while there's still room for some of that messaging, overall expectations have changed significantly in a very short period of time. We've moved from a sales messaging to messages of hope, togetherness, community. And it's important that all marketing messages take this tone for this foreseeable future. So you need to shift that message from selling to helping. So unless you happen to provide PPE, toilet paper, or you own a liquor store, people probably don't want to hear your sales pitch or see a price and item ad. So you're going to have to flip your thoughts and think about, what can I provide my customers or community that will be of value right now? So a couple ways you can do that is become a thought leader in your industry and geography. The more often you post, the more bold or thought-provoking your content is, the more likely you are to engage and grow your audience. Leveraging existing channels like blogs, emails, vlogs, LinkedIn are all an easy way to get your message out to larger audiences. Be a resource and provide an ear. So think about what information people are looking for related to your industry and make it accessible either on your website, on your social channels, via newsletters, blogs, however you communicate with your customers regularly. Or you can host an Ask Me Anything session. You can extend an offer for a free 30-minute session with your employees, or for some of those of you that are smaller businesses, you might just be able to make a phone call and reach out to your customers and clients. And at the very least, this will lead to positive sentiment that will translate into more business in the future. And finally, be conscious, be sincere, focus on what the customer needs from you. So adopt that we're all in this together mindset and share everything at this point. The communication should be informative, honest, authentic, and really community focused, regardless of how you just define your community. And take a storytelling or narrative approach when you do that. Tell them what you've been through and what you're experiencing and what you think might be helpful for them as it relates to your business. And we've all seen and sent numerous COVID-19 updates, emails, et cetera, but the content of those has now shifted to a reopening message, which is, I think has many of us optimistic. But regardless of whether you've been open in quarantine or not, clients and customers want reassurances and to know how you'll be handling things moving forward. So everybody, regardless of whether you have a storefront or not, is going to be doing something differently, and that should be communicated. Here's a few examples of brands that we thought have done this well.
Yeah, so on the B2B side of things, there's a company called Hubspot. So if you're not familiar with them, they're a marketing automation provider. So they're largely selling to, in some cases, business owners, and other cases, directors of marketing, directors of sales. And they've always made a name for themselves by really focused on doing this, helping and educating their customers and prospective customers. Really don't get a lot of like sales messaging for them. Since this whole thing has started, they have taken that approach and they have doubled and tripled down on it. So you not only are they starting to offer a lot of like the tools that they have as just value added and bonus, but also in their communications to customers and prospective customers, it's all about answering the questions that they have. So sales and marketing teams are often wondering, hey, how are the open rates on my marketing emails doing? How are other people doing relative to me right now? So they've been doing weekly studies on that and looking at their data. Hey, are people seeing new sales deals? What are people in the restaurant and food service industry hearing? So they've been doing industry-specific research and then sharing that via email. So again, just taking what they already did and doubling and tripling down on it. I think it's a really great example. I encourage you to go to their website and maybe check out some of their stuff to see how they're doing that. Then more on the consumer side of things, you have Walgreens, right? I mean, Alison just mentioned, we all got like 1 million messages about COVID-19 when this all started. I think this one does a pretty good job of just saying similar things that you heard from other people in kind of like an interesting, visually engaging manner. And again, not focused on selling, more just answering the questions of their customers.
Yeah, and then here's OdySea Aquarium, which is actually one of our clients. And of course, they had to close very quickly and unexpectedly and pivot very quickly. But they wanted to keep their visitors and fans engaged, even though they couldn't actually visit the aquarium. So they quickly came up with some fantastic ideas, including live animal cams, a virtual classroom, which my kids loved, and started doing daily Facebook Live updates with the animals. They had behind the scenes tours. It was just really cute. They did a great job. And while this didn't have a direct sales message, that level of engagement and top of mind awareness will serve them well for a long time.
Number 2, consider new marketable offerings. So what does that mean? Now is the time, right? So to take that non-digital business and move it to the virtual world. A lot of us have obviously made that shift already. And if you haven't, this is definitely the time to do it, because even as we're opening up, it is, we're not going back to the consumer journey that we used to have. One of the key things to do when you're thinking about new offerings is just listening to your customers. Sounded like a lot of you are small business owners or work at a small business, which means you probably have a lot of time on the front lines talking to your customers. So a key thing you can always do is asking them and understanding how their needs have changed during this time and what you can provide them that satisfies those needs. Now, lastly, but probably most important, and the piece here that we really want to focus on is thinking about offerings that can provide long-term value to your business. So a lot of times when we think of adding a new service line or offering, we think about, oh, there's an immediate need for this and I can see an immediate return. In this case, to challenge you, if possible, and I understand when we're a small business, it makes it a little bit more difficult because we're thinking about things like cash flow, of course. But think about things you can offer that might be like a loss leader, but might provide you exponentially more marketing or PR value in the long term that can actually does end up providing you that long-term value. So a few examples of that. Fox Restaurant Concepts, if you're not familiar with them, they are a restaurant group. They recently got acquired by Cheesecake Factory, so they're actually pretty decent size at this point. But when, mid-March, as things started shutting down, while most restaurants were closing temporarily, they actually quickly pivoted to all curbside pickup. And they started offering 35% off food and 50% off beer and wine to go, And obviously, when you're not getting that in-store dining experience, they're offering these discounts to incentivize people. I, for one, took advantage of this and loved it. And at first, you could actually show up and order. You could call in, or you could order online. I think very quickly, a few days in, they started to realize that this was a big hit because it was actually a pretty good deal, and it was a great seamless customer journey. But one of the things they realized is they were not capturing customers' information because they weren't all going and using the online portals. So then they started requiring people to actually sign up for an account and do the online ordering. So ultimately, the marketing value they unlocked, right? So if we think about the restaurant industry, we all know that that's they operate on thin margins. So when you're offering 35% off and you still have your storefront, which you're still probably paying rent on, it's difficult to make money on that. But they created a situation where they were building up this database of customer information, customer preferences during this temporary shutdown, where they could actually end up marketing to these people in the future and ongoing, and then also finding out who were their most loyal customers and providing them with, like a great experience and helping them during this time. Another example is actually the Phoenix Zoo, and obviously a client of ours. And a lot of this actually came from their internal team, which is just an incredible team and really creative. So they had a few really great ideas during this time. So mostly they were shut down, but one of the things that they implemented was a drive-through like safari tour where you could actually take your car and take your family, and I think it was $65 per car, and actually do a tour around the zoo, which was not something customers were demanding, but it was a creative idea that they brought to the table. Now, $65 might sound like a lot, and it actually sold out most days if I remember correctly. But the reality is operating a zoo is quite expensive, and that's not it's not a huge money maker per se for them, but the real value came in all the press they got from it. So on the left there, you see all the news stories, and there were 100 more of those. Another example is they have a sloth named Fernando who's quite famous and became infamous here in a sense, ended up on TMZ a few weeks back. So if you're not familiar, there's a tool out there called, or a website out there called Cameo. Cameo, you can actually find, pay to have like a celebrity give a friend or a family member a shout out. Usually people do this around birthdays and things like that. So they actually thought of the idea of putting him on Cameo, and they were charging people $50 each to get a shout out from Fernando the Sloth. And again, got a lot of press for it. And what's the value on this? Making money off a $50 shout out from a sloth is not the way for the Phoenix Zoo to be successful in the long term. Great story, but the real value is the press, right? So the newsworthy stories that came out and staying top of mind with their potential visitors and any donors, which is really important for a zoo, obviously. And then lastly, continuing to build that database, right? Every time someone bought a ticket, continues to build their database and someone that they could continue to market to going forward.
Yeah, and then that leads us into shifting your advertising investments. So you can go on to the next one, Nick. During a crisis, marketing budgets, especially advertising funds, are often the first to go. And at the same time, it's often what's needed to help get you through the situation. So remember, if it's done right, marketing is an investment, not an expense. Interestingly, there was a Forbes article written just last fall on this topic. I'm going to read a direct quote from the article. It said, "There have been a number of studies that point out the advantages of maintaining or even increasing ad budgets during a weaker economy. Those advertisers that maintained or grew their ad spending increased sales and market share during the recession and afterwards." And it goes on to give examples of major national brands like Post and Kellogg's who overtook their competitors during a recession. It's definitely worth a read, and it's linked on this slide, so we'll send this out. According to a recent 4A study, only 33% of people say they'll go back to the brands that they used to buy pre-COVID, which means there's a huge opportunity for conquest. So everything's changed. Now's the time to be top of mind. A perfect example of that is, when you go to the grocery store and there was a shortage of toilet paper, you just looked at what's in stock. That's what I'll buy. And if you can be top of mind and you can be in front of people, that gives you the best opportunity. So the reality is no one has unlimited budgets. So you'll have to be strategic, focus your spend on channels where you can easily track return and that you think will pay off in the long run, to Nick's point. And this next slide, there they are. On the next slide, there's some stats from M&I, a data-driven media company, on how people perceive ads. These are even more relevant in today's world because of the shift in consumer focus. People are more open to brands' messaging more than ever and willing to try new products. So when you're deciding on your tactics and channels, account for the shift in media habits. In the short term, you can take advantage of increased time spent with social media and video content. 65% of consumers were still at home as of 2 weeks ago. So focus on in-home and in-hand. I'm going to list here a couple tactics that you can take advantage of. So we'll share a couple other resources with you on the next slide that'll help you better understand how to utilize those if you're not comfortable or familiar with them, because they can be done. Whether you work with an advertising agency partner or a freelancer on your marketing, or you do your marketing yourself, or you are a marketer by trade, any of those can be done. You just have to do there's just a bit of a learning curve, but it's not impossible. So our tips are just focus on, again, in-home and in-hand. Double down on those digital basics. So AdWords, paid search, and display to ensure people know your status. And this is the opportunity to stand out above your competitors if they've pulled back on those channels. Utilizing retargeting and lookalike campaigns based on your current database. So basically, these allow you to reach your existing customers that are already showing interest in your offering, or you can reach new customers who look just like your current customers. And those are all available in the social platforms in a paid social campaign. And again, those are very efficient channels. And then lastly, consider video. Video content is being consumed right now at a higher rate than it ever has before. And there's a lot of options for that. You can do live social videos. You can do recorded social videos and put them on your own social channels. You can record videos and vlogs and blogs and share those with your email database. You can look into local cable and TV advertising. It's actually very efficient and affordable right now because there were advertisers who were forced to pull out. So there's space available, and that's always a fantastic media option. And then of course there's OTT, which is over the top and streaming. Those are used essentially interchangeably, but that's a very uncluttered space and allows you to have a large share of voice in an area where people are streaming more video than they have ever before at this point too. So those are all really great places to be. And of course, there's been a natural shift away from radio and out of home during this while people are home, but those will become very viable options again as soon as things start to reopen and traffic increases. So keep those in mind for your short-term consideration set as well. And then Nick, do you want to talk about a couple of these channels and the resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Alison said, it depends, right? You might be a marketer by trade. You might be working with an agency. You might be a business owner and be trying to do this all yourself. This is really more just want to provide some tools. If you have the extra time and you want to learn about some of these channels, Facebook Blueprint, Neil Patel, Skillshare and Udemy, there's a ton of resources online about all of these. These are just some of the ones that I would recommend you go to if you're just trying to get a baseline knowledge and just try to understand terminology and what's possible with some of these tools. Obviously, the further you get into it, the more difficult it can be, but definitely encourage you to check some of these out. Number 4, developing new partnerships. So this kind of gives me a little bit of a feeling like a reminder of like group projects back in school. I don't think many people have very positive memories of that, but the reality is developing partnerships can be super valuable if you develop the right ones. So it's something that in reality we know is valuable, but often we deprioritize it because we just don't have the time. And this is the perfect time because people are more willing and open to collaborate and do partnerships than ever. You know, you've probably heard the saying content is king as it relates to marketing, and that's absolutely true. The difficulty with that is, or the difficulty for most people is developing content. It can take a lot of time and a lot of effort. The nice thing with partnerships is it makes that content creation process much easier. So whether you're on the, you know, more on the consumer side and you can be using channels like an Instagram Live and a Facebook Live, or you're on like more in a B2B space and you're doing Zoom webinars like we're doing here today, or LinkedIn content with someone else, I would encourage you to develop an approach where you become kind of like a ringleader of like-minded individuals. So that align values-wise with your organization. So you probably know a lot of people in your sphere of influence already. I'd encourage you to tap into that network and see who you can bring in for discussions relevant to your specific offering. So a couple examples of that. Sweat & Co. So this is actually a PR partner that works their audience is just working with creative and digital agencies. And what they did is they basically developed, and they're actually a new company, just a few months old, and they developed a pretty similar to what the Better Business Bureau did here, actually, where for 2 weeks straight, they were just doing webinars, and they were bringing in a lot of the big names in the advertising, creative, and digital space, and just having discussions around various topics. Now, the reality is Sweat & Co. is an agency, so you don't really expect them to do this. From like more industry organizations or maybe a Better Business Bureau, that's more expected. But I encourage you to look at things like this and see where you can kind of become a ringleader like they did. And the nice thing is it didn't require a ton of effort. He leveraged his existing network to bring these people together, and ultimately built this from 2 weeks of building up people signing up for webinars and engaging in this big database where he could market to them in follow-up emails and things like that, but also like established himself as a leader in this industry really quickly for his new company because he associated himself with all these other names that people were already familiar with. Another example is a company called MYOKINETIX. So this is a local term, it's a physical therapy clinic, right? And as you can imagine, during shutdown, physical therapy can be pretty difficult because you really need that hands-on approach, which obviously became difficult during this. So MyKinetics took a pretty interesting approach, and that was developing a podcast. And kind of similar here, I mean, they started with nothing, right? Whatever it was, March 15th, March 16th, I forget the first day of lockdown, but they had no followers, but they knew they had this sphere of people, you know, in their space, they work with a lot of elite athletes, and that includes high school, college, professionals. So started interviewing those athletes, but also on the partnership side, started interviewing doctors and other physical therapists and things like that, where they could actually, again, become that ringleader that brings all these people together and is starting to answer these questions for customers or prospective customers. And ultimately, the result of that was developing deeper relationships with clients than they already had going into this situation. Because, you know, obviously sharing this content with them directly, but then also continuing to increase exposure by working with the people he brought in for interviews to actually increase exposure and have them promoting the content through their channels. So just another example, small company. I mean, they're just a team, I think, of 3 or 4, but just using the time really wisely and developing these partnerships in a meaningful way.
Yeah, get the word out. So this is kind of that a second piece to that, where you've developed this content, and then now it's time to share that. So whether you're working, again, with an advertising agency partner or a freelancer, you handle your own marketing, communicating your current state, your initiatives, and the resources you provide are paramount. Our friends at Suzy, a real-time market research platform, and the 4As, a National Association of Advertising Agencies, recently conducted a survey, and they found the following stats. So 75% of people believe the brands should be advertising. 58% are still likely to be influenced by a brand's advertising. 65% of people believe COVID has impacted what they care about. So for example, people have reevaluated where they live, how they shop, when and where they shop. And yet only 12% want to see business as usual advertising. And I think this is a really important point, because the advertising that they do, they want to know that brands care. They want to know that they're still there. It provides that sense of stability. But instead, they want the ads to reflect their world. So whether it's working from home, homeschooling, enjoying the spring weather, your kids showing up on your Zoom calls like mine almost just did. Brands need to be empathetic and pivot quickly to be most successful. So think about what those stories are that you can share. Forget features and benefits of your product. Think about how you can connect with your community. People want informative, honest, authentic, clear, and thought-provoking content. They want you to engage, so don't be silent. 88% of people trust brand info the same, if not more, in regard to COVID. So it just enhances people's trust in your brand if you are able to connect with them and relate. A good example of this, it was a national example, and I should have pulled the ad. It really is a great one, but Hotels.com has their, for lack of a better word, mascot, Captain Obvious. And he's going, the ad basically said, it's just him sitting there by himself in a chair. And it says he's going to be social distancing for a while, and so should you. And they changed their tagline temporarily to just stay home, which showed that they were responsible corporate citizens. So even though, of course, they want you to book hotels through them, they wanted to stay top of mind, but they knew that it wasn't a safe offering that they had at the time, but they know it will come back. So that was a really impactful one. And then lastly, 73% of consumers are willing to shop with brands who do the right thing. So again, not features or benefits or even price. Walk the walk and show you care. A really good example of this I saw it was Daily Harvest. They make healthy frozen meals that are delivered to your home. And they, right as all this started, they delivered tens, if not hundreds of thousands of their meals for free to frontline workers. So that was a really impactful thing. And they really, again, they walked the walk. So here are some communication best practices. All communications, first and foremost, should honor your brand, but they should be relevant, genuine, and reflect the tone of the times. Decide on your key messaging and cadence first. So make a plan. And more importantly here, and if you haven't seen it, please check out Simon Sinek's The Golden Circle. You should know your why. People will, more than ever, will relate to your why, and which leads to your values and your mission and your vision, and upholds all of those important brand tenets. So keep in mind, what's your overarching theme? What's your end goal? What are you going to do? How? And again, why? What is your why? Utilize the tools you'll have. We'll touch on this in the next section a little bit, but just know that you can handle your own social media, even paid, and use some of the tools that Nick mentioned in the previous section. Get creative, be genuine, be thoughtful. I know I've repeated these things multiple times, but it really is important now more than ever. And lastly, keep it up. We'll assume that you've all sent communications to your customers or database. Don't stop. Keep them updated on where you are, what your status is, and how you intend to continue serving your community. So then on the next slide is a great example from one of our clients, Clover Life Spa. So they're a membership model day spa concept. They've got 4 open, and they're going to be expanding quickly across the country. But their flagship store is in Phoenix at Uptown Plaza at Central and Camelback. So if you're in the area, definitely check it out. But they, of course, had to close because of the stay-at-home order, but wanted to stay relevant and in touch with their followers. So we helped pivot their message to reflect the tone of the times, but still honor everything about their brand, their voice, their tone, their style. But just changed the messaging, and it really resonated with their followers, and they actually gained followers throughout this time, even though they were closed. So we just thought that was a really great example and wanted to share.
And number 6, using the tools you have. So when we think about, the marketing ecosystem, a lot of people feel overwhelmed when they think about all the things that they can be doing. To oversimplify this, you can kind of think about all the marketing channels in 3 main buckets. One is paid channels. So that's everything from your paid advertising, like it could be social media, it could be billboards, could be magazine, whatever that might be. Second one is shared. So that's really when you're posting on your social media platforms, but not paying for it. So think your Facebook post, your Instagram post, things like that. You own your page, but ultimately you don't own your followers. And a lot of us have learned that the hard way, obviously, in recent years, as Facebook and Instagram have moved primarily to a paid for play to reach all those followers we spend so much time building up. The third category is really what we call own channels. And when I'm thinking about own channels, you really want to think about your website, email, and SMS. What I would encourage is during this time, this is a great time to focus on those own channels, right? Those are the things that will provide you the most long-term value and the ability to communicate directly to your customers. There is importance in all of those 3 categories I mentioned, but just in the short term, these are maybe the ones that if you had to prioritize, I would focus on. So an interesting example of this is actually it's actually a startup just started earlier this year, a company called Feelgood. So they're in the food and beverage space. They're actually what do they say? They say they offer your favorite fast food items made 100% from plants. So they're based out of Scottsdale, and they started as a pop-up here just a couple months ago. And basically they go around and they find a location, and they cook the food off-site, but they find a location for people to show up and actually do contactless pickup. And they're using, I think it's all like plant-based food. So they're doing tacos, they're doing burgers, all sorts of things like that. Actually having no physical space and launching during this time was probably like a huge, actually benefited them in a lot of ways. But the thing that I really want to walk you through, and what was most interesting and relevant to this group is how creative they were with their marketing approach. So when you, the way I came across Feelgood was actually just scrolling through Instagram one day and noticing that all of my friends were posting something like this, the one day only healthy fast food pop-up. And I kept thinking to myself, wow, I've seen like 10 people post about this. So as we do, we're curious, went over their Instagram page, saw what it was all about. Ended up on the page. I said, why don't I give them a follow? Sounded kind of interesting. Want to know what this is. As soon as I give them a follow, they posted a story and they said something about, this is only happening one day. Do you want to be invited to the next one? Immediately get a message from them, which you can see here, a personalized message, and where they're driving people to 2 places. One, to Archie Feelgood, which is the fake CEO that they've created for the company. So another way for them to directly communicate with you. And then the second thing is they're asking for your number so they can use SMS in the future. So this is really the key thing. I don't have all the examples of my interactions with them, but they've been really creative, and they continue to ask questions as they go along, so they get more and more data on you so that they can continue to market to you in a really personalized way going forward. And then they ask questions to their followers. Once you're following them, they're asking things like, hey, should our next pop-up be burgers or tacos? And they're asking you to reply with an emoji. So kind of being creative and understanding how people want to be communicated with today using GIFs, memes, emojis, things like that. And this is just an example of that. But here's what I would encourage to really get the feel for how they have developed this. I encourage you to go to Feelgood's Instagram page and follow them and kind of just see how that process follows up. So what's the value? I mean, they created a ton of social buzz by doing this. But most importantly, they developed a rich customer list with data where they can specifically SMS and email people and create a personalized relationship going forward. Now, I will say one thing that they did great is it was clear that they had set this up using marketing automation and things were just triggering on their own. That's always, when I hear the term automation, everyone thinks, oh, it just does it on its own. It does require a lot of work and a lot of time to set it all up properly. But once you do have it set up, you can really reap the rewards very quickly. So give them a follow and take a look. And I think it could inspire some ideas for your business.
Yeah, and lastly, rally the troops. And so what we mean by troops is really both your internal employees within your organization and the community around you, whatever that looks like. Your message has to resonate with both your internal and external customers. And your internal team they are your brand ambassadors. They are the people that are going to be in front of your customers on a regular basis. They're going to be face to face. And if they feel good about what they're doing, then your customers will feel good about what you're doing. And so it's important and it's also time to leverage all those partnerships, kind of cash in on those deposits that you made in the emotional bank right before, when you were supporting your kids' schools or supporting local sports teams or hosting charity events or donating to local charities. It's okay to leverage those partnerships, and it's time. You're going to need some support, many of you more so than others, and it's time. And then vice versa, as a good community member, keep those businesses in mind that have supported you or your organizations in the past as well. I think that's a really important thing for all of us to keep in mind. And at LaneTerralever, we're very, very fortunate. We were actually looking at a lot of different examples here. Here's a couple tips up on the screen, but we were trying to think of a really good example of this, and we actually came back around after Nick and I chatted to our own organization. There were a couple things that happened. One is that we have an extremely skilled group of web developers, and one of the ideas that our CEO had was to help support local restaurants in our area that were struggling, and something that could be scaled nationally. And so we've come up with a new app. It's called Eaten In. It's going to be really great, and we're working through that now. But it was something that it was an initiative that we took on our own. It wasn't a request from any particular client, and we're going to offer it to our restaurant partners, whether they're clients or not. And but it was something that we had the ability to do, and it's something that we could do to support our community. And even beyond that, our team really rallied when we started working from home. It was a hard time for everybody, and it was a hard adjustment for everybody. But you'll see, I'm going to show you a video in just a minute, and you'll see that we have been voted #1 workplace culture in Arizona. And it's very true. We all really enjoy and love each other, and we collaborate really well, and we get along really well. And when we all started working from home, it was so different for all of us, because we were so used to being in the same office and having the opportunity to collaborate kind of on a whim whenever we needed or whatever inspiration hit us. And so it was a big change, but we all were so excited, and we're all very proud of what we do. And so we were able to adjust pretty quickly, and we're really excited about that, and we feel really good about that. And so we're going to share a video with you. It was meant for, it's a clip of a video, because there's a lot more in there, that there's some ads and things that we've created that haven't been released to the public. So we didn't include the entire thing, but we're going to share a video with you that our team put together and shared with our entire group on Monday. And I won't lie to you, there were some tears. We're all really proud of it, but it was a great reminder of all the things we've accomplished during this time. Even though it was a highly stressful and crazy time, we also came together as a team and really accomplished some really awesome stuff for our clients, and we're able to adapt quickly. And of course, all of us as marketers, that's what we have to do, is adapt quickly. And so we're really proud of that. And we'll share that video with you now. Warning, there is one foul word in there. Again, this was just our internal video, but meant for a sense of humor. So close your ears, or if there's any kids around, put it on mute. But other than that, there's just one. But then we hope you enjoy, and then we'll do a quick recap and questions and answers after.
Despite these unprecedented, challenging, crazy, pain in the ass, fucked up times, we've risen to the occasion.
Yeah, so again, in summary, those are the 7 things that you can do in the short term to ensure long-term success. And I'm sure you saw that there were a lot of fluid themes throughout, and we hope that was really helpful for you. Nick, do you have any other parting words before we go to Q&A?
No, I was just going to say, I think everyone's business is going to be so unique. So I think, we have our emails up here on the screen now. I'd say email either of us or both of us if you have any specific questions for us. Obviously, we can do Q&A here too. But I know everyone's business is so unique. So if there's something you want to dive in a little bit more, or if you want the deck or something like that, just feel free to reach out to us. So.
Great. So we'll go ahead and go to our questions. And we have a question from Mel. Do you have any advice for construction and remodeling companies?
Well, I'd have to think about specific. It would have to be more specifically to what you're trying to accomplish or do right now. I know that, of course, it's my husband's actually in the construction industry as well. And I can share that anecdote with you. Actually, they're looking at some new technologies. So they are working actually with us to develop a new app that will provide an e-commerce platform and an easy ordering platform for their company, inventory management and ordering platform. And it's something that, while it's not an ideal time for anyone's company, they've decided to make the investment in that. So, I think, again, going back to everything that we've said, just looking for areas of opportunity and things that will pay off in the long run and investing in those now is something to think about. Nick, do you have any other thoughts? I think
the partner one that we mentioned, I think the finding partners, and I don't know the form specifically that the content that you would create might take, that might be more social media. It might be probably not a podcast, probably something more visual given what you're providing. But I think the partnering thing would be the thing that I would prioritize right now if I were you. Kind of building that future pipeline of potential business by just inspiring people. Because a lot of people might not sign off on new projects right now, but a lot of people are sitting at home on their iPads and their devices and dreaming of that more than ever. So
Yeah, that's a great point, Nick. I mean, even offering free consultation services, or maybe doing designs and offering a sneak peek at those, so that people can get a sense of what they might be able to get excited about, something like that. And I think too, keeping in mind that consistent communication, not only from you to your customers, but also you to your employees, because they are those brand ambassadors. And if they're on construction sites, especially if they're residential, people are going to want to know that they are being safe, that they're taking precautions, that they're wearing the appropriate protective gear and things like that. And just letting the community know that you're taking all those precautions and that you're taking it seriously will likely go a long way with consumers.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Luke. How do you get everyone to be on the same page when you're trying something new that has pushback?
Change is hard. Change is hard. Yeah, it can be very uncomfortable at times. I always tell my team, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So sometimes I think it has everything to do with the delivery and the communication of it. I think if you've got an idea and you really feel strongly about it, the more you can engage your team to get their buy-in and talk to them and run it by them, or even your consumers. If it's something that, for example, the Eaten In platform that we talked about, we actually have some restaurant partners. And so from the get-go, we reached out to them and said, hey, what do you think of this? Is this something that's going to work for you? Does it make sense? So we involved them in the process all the way through. And then same thing with our internal team. You know, we have a lot of communication and collaboration. Even when there's an idea or initiative, we'll talk about it and get that buy-in from the beginning. And I think generally that's just a good rule to help facilitate change, is to acknowledge, yes, this might be uncomfortable. Yes, this might be different, but what do you think about it? And let them weigh in and let them be a part of it, rather than just telling them that's the way it's going to be.
Great. We have a question from Natalie. What are your thoughts on white papers? Are they valuable and do people actually read them?
Oh, this is Nick's jam.
Oh God. All right. Yeah. I think the value in white paper, in order for a white paper to be valuable, I think you need to do some sort of original research or have some sort of original point of view. To the question of do people read them? Do people read every word? Probably not. So you got to make them pretty visually appealing and make them more infographic-y, I guess I would say. More and more people are looking, like we said earlier, for like video type content. The way I would leverage white paper is as a way to, I would gate them and use it as a way to start a more personalized and one-on-one relationship or discussion with someone. If someone gives you their email address and they download your white paper, it gives you a good reason to follow up. And you can kind of look them up beforehand and understand who they are and what they might be interested in. So is there value? Absolutely. Focus on visual and need some sort of original thought or research in there to actually entice someone to be interested in it.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Bill. I work in the AC service industry and people usually call me only when they need their AC repaired. Do you have any suggestions on how to make my industry look exciting on social media and how to also maintain and engage with my current customers and to stay connected with us?
I can jump in real quick. So social wouldn't probably be my top priority right now, but I do think if you have that database of former or current customers, I think there could be a great opportunity. And I don't know what information you have there, but staying in touch via SMS, so text message, via email. And again, not necessarily reaching out and saying, hey, do you need your next appointment scheduled? But think about, I don't know the exact questions people are asking right now, but are there like those questions people are asking coming into summer that they might be asking? What are those 5 questions that people have lingering in their head? And maybe you could send that out via email, right? And say, hey, hey guys, it might have been a year or 5 years since I last helped you. It doesn't matter. I know a lot of people are concerned, as we roll into summer and people are going to be spending more time at home. Here are the 5 concerns I hear about most, and here's my answer to those questions. The reality is, have those questions been answered on the internet before? Sure. So give them some personality and answer them in your way. So it's a little bit unique. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and I agree. And don't take for granted the knowledge and information that you have. So if you know that me servicing my AC unit right now for maybe a $59, $99 fee, or whatever that fairly nominal fee might be, could extend the life of my unit for X amount of years. And I don't know what those are. You obviously know your brand and your industry the best, but if you can supply me with that information, then I'm more apt to then call, and in that way you're acting as a consultant and as a thought leader. And Nick touched on that quite a bit about being a thought leader. So utilize the channels that you have to communicate with customers, whether that's through your social channels, your database, or even traditional paid advertising. Be that resource. So rather than selling your services, give them an opportunity, write down all those frequently asked questions, to Nick's point, or all those statistics, or all those things that people might find interesting that might compel them to think about it in a different way, and offer that facts and the information for free, because then that will pay off in the long term, and that will help consumers keep you top of mind over the time that they don't need you. But when they do need you, which will be inevitable, then you'll be top of mind.
Great, thank you. And I think that's all the questions that we have that were submitted. So thank you so much, Alison and Nick, for taking time out of your busy day to present our webinar today. If you would like to retrieve these slides, just reach out to Alison or Nick. We also will be posting this recording on events.bbcommunity.org that you can view the recording and the information if you need to share it as well with your colleagues and your employees. So thank you everyone for attending. Please have a great day and please stay safe out there.